Good.
First of all, thank you for joining us. My name is Dr. Crystal. Welcome to On Sabbatical with Dr. Crystal. And we are currently in the midst of a really exciting series called Disillusionment to Discovery. So, for this channel, we are basically supporting women who are over 40, 45 ish, who are looking at that next decade and thinking it's got to change, it's got to be different. So if you've
Mhm.
experienced burnout, whatever level of dissatisfaction and disillusionment you have with your current decade, but you want to maybe shift things up and transform and reinvent at least your work life or maybe your personal life too. I happen to believe that international travel, especially slow travel, is the best way to do that. And so that's what being on sabbatical is about. However, today we have a wonderful guest, someone that I met very recently here in Bangkok, Thailand. And I'm so excited to have Yvette Malcioln here with us today. And so I'm going to let her take a few minutes to introduce herself. She's had such a phenomenal, wonderful career in service to our great United States of America. And she finds herself here on retirement in Thailand. And so, Yvette, will you tell us more about your story and what brought you here to this point?
Sure, sure. So my name is Yvette Malcioln, and I am originally from New York City, from Manhattan, from Harlem. So proud native New Yorker. And as Dr. Crystal said, just recently, actually, this past June, wrapped up over 29 years in the federal service, specifically working for USAID as a foreign service officer. And my area of expertise was education. I would say I spent almost half of my career living overseas in various posts. And my last post was the Philippines, where I lived for 4 years and served as the deputy in the education office. I left there involuntarily due to decisions made by this administration in June. Spent a little time in July in the States, kind of, I don't know, regathering myself and then moved here actually in early July, moved to Bangkok, Thailand, where, as Dr. Crystal said, I am retired, but not idle. And I'm working on, I'm coming to the end almost of a doctorate that I've been working on for almost the last 2 years, an EDD, a doctorate of education. So that's me. Oh,
Wonderful.
and I'm the mother of a young adult. She's 24, and she's a teacher, and my daughter lives in Asia teaching English.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't realize she was teaching English.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so welcome. I'm so excited to have you here for this conversation. And just so people know, we actually already had like a really amazing conversation before the cameras were on. So I know this one's going to be even better. So I like to start by asking people sort of what was the catalyst that got them out of the door? Now, in your case, you chose a career that involved international travel. So at a young age, you received this inspiration that life abroad was something you wanted to fully commit to. Can you tell us a little bit about that evolution and like what made, and then you chose to stick with it 29 years. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. After I graduated from college, a girlfriend and I went to London, and we worked under a special program that they had there for people under 26, where you could get a work visa if you were only planning to stay temporarily. So I got a job as a waitress for a little while and then as a telemarketer for a bit. And the jobs weren't inspiring, but I really enjoyed living overseas. I only did this for about a month, but it planted a bug in me, and I decided, yeah, I need to find a way to get back overseas. And in graduate school, I met a number of people who had just recently come back from serving in the Peace Corps.
Hmm.
And I became friends with them and heard their stories and got intrigued and decided, okay, yeah, maybe this is a way to kind of get my foot in the door of international development and a career overseas. And so I served in Ghana for 2 years. In the Peace Corps, I taught literacy classes for women. So I taught women how to read. I came out of that. I worked for Peace Corps as an employee and then eventually applied to USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development. I should explain that acronym, where I began my career in the Foreign Service in the mid-90s.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's kind of how I got on this path. Now
And so
it sounds rational, but things just sort of worked out for me at the time.
now I realize it might have been a while ago, but one of the other questions that I ask in this section of the interview is like, so when your friends and family heard that you were choosing this path, I'm wondering how that impacted, like, were they very upfront and how did you navigate like their expectations or their approval or disapproval as it may have been?
Well, it's funny you say that, and I'm chuckling because especially when I decided to go into the Peace Corps, I was working a real job, if you will. I was working for a company that no longer exists called Electronic Data Systems. Some of your older listeners may remember Ross Perot, who ran for president eventually. Well, this was his company, and I was working there as a trainer. And so my colleagues there thought I was crazy. What? You have a job and you're going to go overseas and, live in a hut? What is that about? My family too, they were kind of concerned and didn't understand, but they said, okay, well, this is what you want to do. You're an adult. This is your choice. I was in my mid to late 20s at the time. So yeah, little bit of skepticism and not really understanding. I think my family came around though once I came back and actually started a career and as you might say, a real job with USAID, and then they saw the benefit of it. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's always great when they come around. And sometimes, I think it's important for people to realize that, you could choose to do a lot of things that people don't approve of, and they come around or they don't, and travel is no different.
True.
I guess the difference is if they don't approve, you won't be running into them often.
That's true.
They're gonna have to take the initiative to text you and remind you that they disapprove while you're gone.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but I love that. And so I'm really interested because I mean, you're the only diplomat that I know. That's such a cool choice of a career. And I don't think people, so for the younger people or people who know young people who want, like my daughter's generation, they all want to live abroad. Like they come out the womb wanting to travel, wanting a
Huh?
passport. So, can you share a little bit about, and I realize what is it, that industry, that career fail of being a federal service worker is looking perhaps differently now than it did when you started. But I'm
Right.
just
Right.
wondering for people who may be wondering, like, what are all things that I can get abroad to get out the door? What are some recommendations that you would have, or something like, how do you know that you're the type of person that could be successful or be effective in live in a full-time career that requires travel and being abroad? Because people think it's glamorous and you're in the first class with the seats the way back and living,
Yeah.
just
It's
living
not
abroad,
all
so
glamorous, as you
yeah,
know.
yeah. That and Peace Corps, I think also this would be a great place to maybe talk about the benefits of that as an avenue of maybe not escape, but just a career reinvention, an opportunity for reinvention.
Yeah, well, and I neglected to say that when I came back from Peace Corps, one of my first jobs was to become a recruiter for Peace Corps. And it was a wonderful job because as I often say, I got paid for being able to just talk about my experience. After my friends and family had gotten tired of hearing my stories, I had a lot of, fresh audiences that I could tell about it. But I would suggest Peace Corps to almost anyone. There is no upper age limit. Some of the older folks who are listening to this may remember that that former President Jimmy Carter, his mother, Miss Rosalind, I think her name was, she was a Peace Corps volunteer, I think in her 60s or 70s.
Wow.
In Africa. Yeah. And when I was a volunteer, there were two gentlemen who were in their 60s. They had retired and they wanted to do something that would benefit someone else, but also have a chance to travel. on the government's dime, I suppose. And so, yeah, they were in our group. And I remember in our training when we were learning how to build a latrine. One of them, he had been an engineer, and so had a lot of experience in that, and was sharing that with us. So that is something that I still recommend to anyone. Peace Corps is 2 years. They have made changes to it since I was a volunteer, I think for the better. For instance, I couldn't choose what country I wanted to go to. I could express a preference for the region. Now you can choose the country. They've also narrowed the number of programs. I know they have health programs. I believe they have education programs teaching math and science, and I'm sure they have a few others. I don't know all the details, but I would definitely go to their website, peacecorps.gov, and check that out. So that's is one avenue. The UN has a program too called UN Volunteers, and those volunteers I think tend to be a little more qualified for the jobs that they have, but that's also another avenue. If that's a little too much of a commitment, I would say just just go somewhere overseas for a week or 10 days just to kind of, put your stick your toe in. I'm amazed at some of the young women that I've met here who tell me that this is the first foreign country that they've ever traveled to. I would say ideally it would be good to do what I did and like maybe go to the UK because or Ireland or somewhere where they speak English and there's a shared history. And so there's a familiarity, but it is different and you can get a taste. But for the more adventurous, sure, why not go to Asia? Why not go to Africa or other parts of Europe? I will say it's important to go somewhere because travel is just so broadening in terms of understanding that there's more than one way to see things. There's more than one way to live. There's more than one way to think about things and to run your life. It can be just a really enriching experience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I concur 1000% with everything that you've said. Travel has been life changing for me. I know that I would say I've always been a very progressive, inclusive type person. I've always worked closely with international students in the 20 years I was in higher education, did a lot of joint projects, joint fundraising, and have so many really close relationships. So much so I have two grandchildren. I have two godchildren. One's and one is Indian.
Wow.
And yeah, because their moms and I were really close over the decades that I, was mentoring them. It
Hmm.
spills out after they finish school, there's no reason to really be in touch. So
Right,
you
right.
blend the lines a little bit more after they get their degrees and start their careers and start their families. So
Sure.
it's really a blessing. But I think that the understanding of the sacrifice and the commitment that it takes for other young to go
Uh-huh.
from their country, learn a new language, and come get a degree in another country in another language. I was like, the least I could do was go over to England, and I was a house sitter and watch some dogs. So that was my first, what is a toe in the water. And as they
Okay.
say that after that, I was hooked. So I also want to talk about what would you say are, I guess, some of the big like aha moments in terms of during your multiple years abroad, either as a diplomat or just in general as a traveler. What are some of the ways that travel has been transformative to you? And if you could give us, maybe a couple of examples of ways in which you really feel like you're a whole different I mean, in many ways, I'm putting words in your, if you feel like you're not the person you would have been if you hadn't have chosen this path. I think those types of distinctions are really helpful for people to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a good question. One of the first things that occurs to me, and this is before my career, as I said, I was a waitress, probably not a very good one, briefly in in London, but it was a great experience. And I worked in this restaurant. It's a chain that doesn't even exist anymore. I think it's called Garfinkel's or Garfunkel's, one of those. And what fascinated me was that all the staff, they were not your stereotypical white British people. The dishwasher was this dreamy guy, Mario, from Spain. A number of the wait staff were from the Philippines. I remember there was another guy who was a waiter, and he was from Malaysia. The Our manager was also Malaysian, I remember. And it was just the first time for me. And as I said, this was the summer after I graduated from college, that it's not the first time that I had been around people from other countries, because, like I said, I'm from New York, but to have real conversations with people from other countries, to hear about their stories, what brought them to the UK and why they were there, the fact that they were just like so many immigrants going to the US trying to make a better life for their families. It was just such a fascinating experience for me, and just such an enriching experience in that way. I would say my Peace Corps experience also was much like that, because I went to Ghana later as a diplomat working for USAID, and enjoyed it and got into the music scene. I like to sing, and sang and got to know a lot of musicians there and had a good time there. But it wasn't the same as when I was a volunteer and was living out in a village with people day and night. My friendships and my relationships were closer with the people of the country. As a diplomat, there was a little bit of a barrier, and you kind of alluded to this. You weren't always sure, since we were often a donor for various projects. Is this person being friendly to me because they like me and want to talk with me? Or are they hoping for funding? So it was a different dynamic. Whereas when I was in the village, I remember a gentleman saying, "Oh, you're with Peace Corps. Oh, so I know you don't have any money." But what that also meant, though, was, we became friends, and there was no ulterior motive
Hmm.
there. No, no hope for big projects or something. I was there to work with my hands, do what I could just on my own. So yeah, those were some observations I made in the course of my career. But as
Wonderful.
I say, I loved living and working overseas as a diplomat and representing my country. It was a great privilege.
Yes, and I don't know that this much about, your career trajectory, but 29 years is a lot. And so you've seen
Mhm.
a lot, done a lot, and
Mhm.
been through some things. And I'm just curious, for those people who maybe are at year 10, 15, 20, and they're like, I can't do another 7 days.
Mhm.
What are some of the strategies you use to sustain yourself when, like, if you had a period where you felt disillusioned and you thought about leaving but stayed? I think that could be really helpful, if you could share, if that's relevant.
Right. Well, as enriching as my career was and as rewarding, yes, it could be frustrating at times. As I said, my focus was education, which was one of the smaller programs at AID. The two largest were public health and humanitarian assistance. And so by far, they got the bulk of funding and were almost always guaranteed to be funded every year,
Mm.
whereas we in education did not have that security, so to speak. And so it could be frustrating seeing your budget going up and down on a yearly basis and having to adjust the programming that you're trying to do. And it also involved long hours, as any of my colleagues will tell you, because sometimes, due to the difference in the time between Washington and us, you just had to kind of be ready if someone from Washington came to you with an urgent request from the administrator, which is the top level person at AID, or wanting a meeting at 8 p.m. at night because it's easier for them. So to go back to your question, to deal with frustrations like that, I always made sure at every post that I was involved in other activities away from work. I'm a religious person. I don't proselytize, but but it's important to me, and so I always belonged to a church in almost every country I lived in. As I've said, music was important to me, so I either sang, in a band or in a choir or a chorale in almost every country that I was
Mm.
involved in, so that yeah, had other interests. And then for a lot of my career, I was a single mother. My last three posts, at my last three posts, my daughter was in junior high school for the first one, that was Bangladesh, then high school in Ghana. And then for a year or two, because then that was COVID, she was with me, but in college online.
Mhm.
And so just helping and supporting her also, kind of helped me put things into perspective. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I would just advise that for anybody,
Mhm.
anywhere, no matter what you do for a living and no matter how important it is and fulfilling, it's so important to have other interests away from work that have nothing to do with work, nothing to do with your colleagues. I
Mhm.
think that's very healthy.
And to give yourself permission to pursue those things that you enjoy that are not related to your job, that other people don't have to understand. Because I feel like, particularly as women of color, we
Hmm.
often feel guilty, even if we
Hmm.
are, say, talented in other areas or other gifts or other interests, and we pursue those. We're often allow other people to guilt us, or maybe we feel inherently guilty
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
result of what the society says you should be doing. If you're not putting all of your energy into, a romantic partner or a child, then it should be the job. And then you give yourself like whatever's left. And I
Right.
think when you reach a certain age, if you have lived that way, you can often find yourself not just frustrated, but also resentful and angry
Yes.
and lashing
Yes.
out, or
Yeah.
coping in it with other unhealthy ways, shopping, abusing
Yes.
food,
Drinking
alcohol,
too much,
things. Yeah.
that happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would also put in a plug for book clubs, which I was
Yes.
a member of various ones, and one of my favorites was, again, one that I was in the Philippines, where we kind of alternated between general fiction and bios, but also stories about the Philippines and about the history of it. So that was a way, we were a very curious bunch, I guess, and that was a way for us to gain a deeper understanding of the country that we lived in. So yeah.
I adore reading, and I actually just joined for, the whole 2026 New Year.
Uh-huh.
Now the cliche is New Year, same me. So it is New Year's. I mean, it was always New Year's, same me. We were just saying New Year, new us, and it wasn't a new us. So we just
Right,
got honest about that. New Year, same me. But
right.
anyway, and the meeting was this morning, and we're reading Bell Hook's Communion.
Okay, I haven't read
And it was
that.
such a fabulous discussion. Just the first three
Mm.
chapters, which of course I had not finished all three chapters, but it was still an amazing discussion. But I love that. I think that's another thing that I would say that travel has done for me. It's allowed me to return to some of my passions. I also love to write, and I definitely
Hmm.
love to read. But I've read so much that is for pleasure and not for
Hmm.
research or for teaching or for preparation.
Yeah,
And I
that's
didn't
important.
I didn't know how much I missed and how
Hmm.
much my soul felt happy when I did these things that you just kind of get too busy to do. They just fall by the wayside. So
Right,
definitely,
right.
yeah, it's exciting to hear you talk about how you pursued singing. I want to go back to something else you mentioned briefly, which was, the faith and spiritual dimension of
Hmm.
making sure you're plugged in to meeting your needs in that area of life.
Hmm.
Because I think as you travel, at least for me, that's something that I've been kind of hit or miss. It's been difficult for me to feel the type of community that I really crave just watching my online service from the church that I'm a part of at home. I know for other
Yes.
people that's enough, or they make it work, or I don't know, they're not complaining about. And they have I actually am a member of a church that has an amazing audio visual team, and they do a great job. The
Hmm.
problem is not them.
Huh.
Yeah, I just miss being in person. And it was interesting to hear you talk about like being in a choir and getting involved in another country. I
Hmm.
don't know if there were some tips or some strategies you have on how you navigated that complexity in any of the countries that you were successful in making connections there.
It's just kind of my MO when I get to a country, and I did it here in Thailand too. I happen to be Protestant, so I just go online and I look for Protestant churches near me. And
Okay.
then I do what I call auditioning churches. So I just I'll go to, at least 2 or 3 churches. Sometimes in the case of Thailand, actually, my goodness, I think I've been to about 5 different churches
Okay.
here. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been here, oh, 6 months now or so, so it's been over time, but yeah, because like you say, just because you go to church and you then go and visit one, it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
there. And people are always very nice in every church that I've been to anyway, always very welcoming, but maybe the music doesn't touch you in the right way, or the preaching is not up to the standards that you have in your mind, or whatever it is. And so I think it's just important to go to several churches, and hopefully eventually you find one where you kind of feel like you click. And in my case, I think I have found one here. Not a lot of so this is it's been very interesting because the Philippines is a much more religious, in the kind of Western sense, country. It's Catholic, but there are a lot of Protestant churches too, and actual churches, church buildings. Here in the Philippines, in Thailand, a lot of the churches meet in meeting halls or hotels or other places because there's not that same history. There are a lot of evangelical churches here. If that is your religion, then there's a lot to offer there, but that's not my religion. And so, yeah, so it's just taken a while, but it's been a fascinating process. I find religion just fascinating, just culturally too. My father was Jewish, and I've been to the synagogue on their high holy days, and I find that interesting. I've been to Catholic churches, haven't been to a mosque, but I have learned about Islam and know a bit about that. Yeah, that's just
I
something
think,
else.
yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think that's another one of the things that I really appreciate about travel. I have not, so this is my first month of 3 months in Thailand.
Uh-huh.
And although I'll be leaving here, I'm going up to Chiang Mai. I know it's a Buddhist country. And I
Mhm.
had a relative who was very devout Buddhist, like my entire childhood. I remember she's deceased now. And so I don't know. I feel like I grew up around her. So I kind of know about Buddhism, but I probably don't cognitively know any. So I feel like this is an opportunity to exchange that. I also,
I wanna learn more too, yeah, about
yeah,
it.
I
Because it
also,
permeates the culture here, so I'm
yes,
told, but I think I'm not really
recognize
appreciating
it.
that enough because I don't know enough about the religion, but it's very important here, yeah.
And part of the, this is a whole conversation that's um probably we should have online, but I'm gonna have it here and we can decide later what to do with it. This whole
Okay.
idea of the land of smiles and how people are friendly and hospitable. A lot
Mhm,
of that is what I would say that is what I respect about this particular extended family member is that she was very much an aura, like you would be in her presence, and she was very much of an
mhm,
aura of you're accepted and it's okay, it's gonna be
mhm,
okay, you're okay. Whereas I don't
mhm.
feel like that is the aura of Christianity. And it's gotten worse. That's why I said this is not technically what normally is on my channel, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's my channel.
Right, right, right.
But I think, it's one of the things that really disturbs me when I'm around people of other faiths who are committed to their faith, where you can see that it's sort of like a culture, a core value of the culture and the religion
Mhm,
to love people as they are and to
mhm,
not allow yourself to kind of become stressed or in any way involved in changing them or judging them or making them out to be anything other than who they are. Very
mhm.
accepting. I'm probably not expressing it very well, but I don't know if your experiences in Thailand, if you've seen some of that. I mean, and I've heard people say it sort of like in a way that can be a little bit critical and judgmental, like they're just not going to be
Mm.
stressed about stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that can work multiple ways depending on what
it's
your
true.
objective is in the relationship, right?
It's so true. No, but so one thing is that yes, I'm making a mental note to myself listening to this conversation that I really need to like get on YouTube and or get a book and, read, Buddhism for Dummies or something because it is important here. One thing that I remember someone telling me about it though, and so this is very different from being an American, is that one central tenet is in not causing friction
Yes,
and to do what you can to avoid that and to avoid, conflict. And yeah, and then I also think, and I see this in a lot of Asian cultures, there's more of a collective kind of
absolutely.
mentality than an individualistic mentality. Being an individual is very important to us as Americans. This is my identity and, this is who I am and you got to accept me the way I am. And, as opposed to, okay, what's the best thing for the group and how can we, get ahead as a group? It's all very different. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, but, again, for those of us who like to live in other cultures and like to study other cultures, that's fascinating to me. I think we can learn something from that. I think they can learn from us too. When I see somebody, in a family, and every family has that one person who's like really successful and smart, trying to get ahead, but they've got these siblings who like maybe aren't as smart and they're like, hey, you gotta like keep lending me money and you gotta like keep supporting me and, almost sort of dragging that person down. That can be the downside of this kind of, okay, everybody takes care of everybody because sometimes it's lopsided and
Mhm.
yeah, from an American perspective, looks a little unfair. So it's interesting. I feel like no one culture has all the answers. As long as we remember that and try to, have dialogue and share,
Yeah,
it's
and I
useful.
also think that our way of looking at the world comes with I don't know, like a subconscious belief that we're superior, which I think
Yeah.
really robs us of having authentic relationships with people from other cultures, even who are living in the United States. We have to
Yes.
be willing to sustain the idea that the way that we've been trained, because if you look for something, you will find it. And a lot of times
Yes.
it's not there. It's only there because we're so for example, we could see an interaction and
Mm-hmm.
perceive it a certain way, being
Mm-hmm.
unfair or fair,
Mm-hmm.
because we're bringing our values, whatever they are, individualism, for example, capitalism, consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that a family who, again, has that one person who's kind of like the front runner,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in collective culture, they don't have that idea that anybody is the front runner. Even the front runner doesn't feel and embrace the identity of the front runner because that's a
Right.
ludicrous idea to them. The only way you
Right.
can be a front runner is absolutely everybody has everything that they need. That's the
Mm-hmm.
only way that in a collectivist culture that you could be the front runner, is that we are
Mm-hmm.
all the front runner. You can't be,
Mm-hmm.
there is no,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, that's probably an example. I feel like that would be a poster child of a dysfunctional family if only one person has succeeded, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is it? The all tide, I don't know. There's some cliche about all tides ride together, float together. All
Yes.
boats.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
A rising tide lifts all boat. If there's only one person that rose, the boat was destined to sink and nobody's impressed in a more
Right.
collectivist type
Right.
culture. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
before we leave the religion and culture conversation, I really want to share that I'm also a Protestant, but I went to Catholic school for 12 years. And so I'm very
Uh-huh.
comfortable in the Catholic Church and Mass in English and in Spanish because, it's the same prayers. you know,
Right. Right.
a
Right.
little Spanish, you kind of know what they're saying because they're saying the same thing everywhere.
Right.
So
Right.
that was something that, but what I have found is the churches that I've been able to discover and try when I've gone places, they
Mhm.
have been a bit more, I mean, evangelistic in the worst way.
Okay.
And again, I'm putting my own values judgment on that, meaning
Right. Right.
you accepting Christ is based on you doing it this one specific literal type way.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah.
disrespect from other people who in the US, that's their preference. But for
Mhm.
me, it feels like I couldn't really be genuinely
Mhm.
myself
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
am not one who thinks that, yeah. So I guess basically I was just saying that, it's been a fit. It's been a round peg in a square hole or a square peg in a round hole.
Mhm. Yes.
I have gone to a lot of churches where there's been a lot of language and translation
Mm.
services available, and I've really appreciated that in Central America and in Mexico. And so that has been really eye-opening to see how that works in other countries because that is not the way the worship experience works in the United States. If you don't
No.
speak English, you are just good luck with
Right.
don't come or learn English. I don't know. You just out of luck.
Right.
So, again, this whole idea of like accepting people, bringing people in,
Mhm.
there is no judgment. There's a lot of
Mhm.
acceptance and a lot of, just hospitality. Hospitality often just looks different. As a traveler who is, a foreigner, can't speak the language, or when I can speak the language, I'm butchering it so terribly, but still being treated with grace and respect and honor in a way
Yes.
that is not what my home country does, to foreigners. And so I
Right.
sit with sometimes when I have really particularly unique experiences with hospitality that are positive, I often find myself at home reflecting on how opposite that is than how when I lived in the US, I didn't think like this. So I was, of course, not really doing much to make people feel welcome that didn't know everything either.
Mhm.
I feel like I have a higher burden, I would say, to
Mhm.
try to make people feel welcome at home, whether it's
Mhm.
worship experience or whatever it is, whatever space I'm
Right.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now can you talk a little bit about the language learning journey that you have been on? I imagine that you've learned quite a bit. I mean, are you expected to learn languages? How does that work? And how many languages do you speak? Or you got some tips? Because I've been learning Spanish and this is my fifth year, and I just went back to learning French like 2 weeks ago because I'm going to France for my 60th birthday this year.
Speaking Spanish, es muy importante que practicamos nuestro español. Entonces,
Absolutamente.
vamos a hacerlo.
Yes. Habla español poquito es mi favorito.
Oh, okay.
However, I'm very functional. And yes, I am
Good.
able to
Good.
do the things that I need to do in a coffee shop, a restaurant, passport control, the bank, cashier and change,
Yeah.
grocery
That is
store.
the main
I mean, there's
thing.
about 7 to 10 because I just came back from 3 months in Mexico.
Okay.
So people who
Okay.
watch my channel are well acquainted with the Mexico Chronicle. I haven't actually done much content about Bangkok specifically because I've been in the house. I spent 2 weeks sleeping. Yeah, so that for me is
Getting over
which
jet lag or?
that and just was exhausted. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I did too
Mhm.
much when I was back in the U.S. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, in terms of language, so that was one of the perks, if you will, of my former occupation. My very first post, and this was late 90s, was Benin, West Africa, which is a former French colony. For those who may not know, business is conducted in French. So before going there, once I was assigned, I spent 6 months because I had some French, kind of the level that you're saying you have of Spanish, maybe a little less, but it was not enough kind of business French. And so yeah, so for 6 months, that was kind of my job. It wasn't like, oh, I worked and then no, I just went to classes. There's a language institute that
Hmm.
USAID and state have for any languages that people need. So yeah, I went to that and then went out to post. And that was also the case with, I was in Panama for a posting also. And so went through Spanish training. I haven't used either of those, unfortunately, a lot recently, just a little bit, kind of like just what you just heard. So they
You
are
did
kind of
good.
rusty, but I've got a little bit. And as I say, I think it's the Peace Corps volunteer in me that wants to not just know a country on its surface and as a
Hmm.
tourist, but really know a country. And I feel that if you can have even kind of a basic conversation with someone in their language, that's a connection, that you can make that's just richer than surface level tourist one. So I think I already mentioned I'm working on a doctorate that should conclude from my mouth to God's ears in March. And then in April, I'm going to start taking Thai so that I can, yeah, as I say, deepen my understanding. Because, you find, I'm sure you found this too with Spanish, you learn a bit about culture through language by the way
Hmm.
things are expressed. And so I've learned a little bit of Thai on my own. I can say, my name is, what is your name?
That's good.
How are you? I'm fine. So I'll expand on that come April because I think that'll be part of enriching my experience here.
Well, in these last 10, 15 minutes, I really want to get to Thailand, more
Yes.
particularly how you ended up choosing the visa process that you ended up choosing, why you chose it, and what it's been like to be on that journey. I'll let you spill the tea. I won't put the spoiler in there. And
Okay.
what's next for you with
Okay.
that
Okay.
particular skill set?
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of funny. Actually, my first thought before coming here, I was telling colleagues, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to Thailand and I'm going to get a retirement visa." Which you can get. It's just for me, without going into too much detail, the stumbling block was the big chunk of change that you have to have in the bank, and
Mm.
just have it just sitting there as a requirement for the retirement visa. I want to say it's like the equivalent of about 30,000, $40,000. I know it's 800,000 baht, so people can work that out. So I
So you
did
need to
think,
have a retirement account that you were only living off the interest and not drawing down, maybe?
so it's actually two things, right? So you have to have that money sitting in the bank. Then you have to have proof of ongoing income as well. That has nothing to do with that money. And it was a little difficult for me because like I say, my federal career was ending, so I didn't have that to show as proof of incoming income, and my pension hadn't started yet. So I didn't have that. So yeah, I decided not to go for that. I was going to try to go for there is an education visa. Some of your listeners might want to think about that, where you get that through the Ministry of Education. You take a course in Thai. Um, um, yeah, so that's what I wanted to do, but that has an upper age limit, around 50, 52, 53, something like that. And without giving too many details, I was above the upper age limit.
Okay. I didn't know that it had an upper age limit. Okay, I'm so glad you shared that because
I learned that the hard
I
way.
have actually said in previous episodes that people should consider that. And I would say that, I have a couple of diehard 40 somethings in my ecosystem, but the
Uh-huh.
average person I would say is they have a lot of experience with being in their 50s, like maybe 10 years worth of experience. Like me, I'm getting ready to approach my 10th anniversary of being 50.
I love the way you put that. Yeah. So if you're in your mid to late 50s, you might want to think of something else. You might want to think about the Destination Thailand Visa, which it's kind of funny as a former English teacher, people call it the DTV visa, but like that's like visa twice. Because the V is for visa, but it is Thailand's way of exerting, as they call it, soft power and getting foreigners to learn about their culture. And so the requirement for that visa is either taking Muay Thai classes, a certain number of classes, or a cooking class, a certain number of times. And I opted for the cooking class. I had to take 6 sessions with a school, and there are a number of schools here that they're very familiar with the process. They help you with the paperwork. It's wonderful. You do have to apply before you come to Thailand. I learned that the hard way. um or you'll do like me, go to Thailand, find out that you can't apply in Thailand, and so you'll go to a neighboring Asian country and apply and then come back. A
Okay.
lot of people do that.
But
So
six
yeah,
classes you said, so that's not really very much.
It's not, and I did like 2 or 3 a week. I spread it out like that. I know people who do like 1 a month, or you can, do 1 every day. You break
And
it up
how long is the visa for?
5 years, but you have to leave the country every 6 months. Yeah. And I'm not sure for how long, 24 hours or something. It has just worked out for me that have
Yeah.
had a couple of trips out of the country, so I didn't even get to the 6-month mark, and I needed to go to the Philippines for some data collection. So they just kind of like reset it when I came in. Now, the difference though is that with the retirement visa, that is a resident visa. You can open a bank account here. There are probably other
Mm.
benefits. This is not a resident visa. It's better than a tourist visa, but it's not a resident visa. So like I can't open a bank account. But at least, yeah, I don't have to worry about unlike the tourist visa where you have 60 days and you can extend it for
Mhm.
90, but then that's it. And they're really clamping down on that now.
Yes. That is well documented on YouTube. I feel like
Yeah.
they keep pushing those videos out to me. I'm like, okay, I'm not staying. I'm fine. It doesn't affect me. I mean, I it affects me in that I want to be able to accurately answer questions. I mean, once, as you probably know, once you're that friend or family member that's always outside the US, people are
Hmm.
constantly texting you, asking you for advice on the most, I don't know, it seems like random stuff that you
Yes.
might have heard of, might have done, might not know, but at least you're in an ecosystem where you could ask other people who are expats or,
Right.
more experienced travelers, if it's true or if it's not true or what have you.
Very true.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
true.
so helpful. So that is definitely something for people. I feel like a real valid way for people to. I have been recommending people teach English abroad to get it. It's
Yes.
relatively easy to find a job teaching English. And especially if you already have some money coming in,
Hmm.
you don't have to live on what would maybe be not enough wages for the standard of comfort that you're accustomed to.
Right. Right.
And even in
Yeah.
Thailand, where things are quite budget friendly on a Western salary or a Western level pension,
Hmm.
at least that takes care of, the visa thing. It gives you community, somebody, to work with. You can even teach part time if
True.
you find work like that. Or even, some people at any age, they really like little kids and being around little
Hmm.
kids, helping them with basic vocabulary, like would be
Right.
fun. I mean, for an energetic, mature professional woman,
Right.
that
Right.
might look like fun.
But you're right. You're right because, and it's important to say that Thailand is very sort of protective of or making sure that Thais kind of get preference over foreigners. And so there aren't a lot of things that you can do as a foreigner here in terms of work if a Thai person could do it instead. And one of the few things is teaching English. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, yeah, that's another
Yeah,
option.
yeah.
And as
Yes,
you point
so
out,
so for
the cost of living is a lot less. The salary's not going to be great either, but the cost of living is a lot less here. You can eat well on
Mhm.
$3 for lunch or dinner or something. So, yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
question is, are you gonna want to eat that $3 lunch 7 days a week? That's what I have found that is, although it's in theory affordable, I am learning about myself that I am not. I mean, I would say that my channel and my style of travel is definitely in the budget friendly area.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's budget with a purpose. Like I might want to ride comfort class or
Mm-hmm.
Uber or Grab comfort.
Huh?
So I'm willing. I think of it as a jigsaw puzzle. So altogether, it's got to work for a certain
Huh?
number, $2,000-3,000 a month, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I'm going to do all the budget things all the time. And this is something
No.
again that's evolved as I've been traveling now about 14 of the 18 months that since I retired, and so I'm learning about myself. There's
Yeah.
certain things I'm not willing to, you know, do. Although I would
Mm-hmm.
say I'm a long way from there's nothing that would call me a budget, I mean, a luxury travel. There's
Huh?
no level of travel I'm doing that would be called luxury. But
Right,
there are
right.
times that I'm not willing to be budget. I just put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As you say, you kind of get to know yourself here. I will say, and I know other people have said too, you have to be careful here too, because especially if you keep thinking in dollars, things seem very cheap, and so you're like, oh, but that's cheap. So I'll eat out fancy every night because it's cheap, and then it can
It
become
adds up.
expensive. So it's good to balance. Yeah, you're right. Balance that $3 meal with, going to a nice place. And I say nice, but for like 15, $20, you can eat really well here.
Well,
That's an entree and a drink.
I recently had a very luxurious experience this week, as you recall.
Yes.
Someone chose a luxury experience for me to partake of, and it was an amazing event. I was so happy that I did it. Just so everybody in YouTube world knows, I had the opportunity to go to a hotel bar venue in a 5-star luxury hotel. Just looking at directions, we put it in Google Maps, and
Uh-huh.
the first thing they do is they tell you how much it is to stay that particular night. Yes. And it was
Okay.
18,000. So the day before we were there, I think was a Friday night, when
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get like the direction to see how far away the place was, it said
Huh?
18,000 baht for that
Wow.
night's hotel. And I was sitting next to my host and telling her about it. And she was like, that's some people's whole rent. I was like, it's also what
Yeah.
it takes to spend the night in a hotel for tonight. Now, I'm sure if you booked in advance or, all the other things, then
Right.
it's not really, or it's more than one night. But that's what popped up on page one. The page has the directions. If you go down, that's what was there. I was
Wow.
just looking at pictures. So you can
Yeah.
eat for $3 a night, and you can also spend $600 a night. I think 18,000 baht is like 600.
Was
You can
thinking
also
about
spend
600.
$600 a night in a hotel. So
Yes.
it has
Yes.
everything that you're looking for.
Bangkok has it all.
Everything,
Exactly.
everything. Bangkok has everything. Yes, but it was such a wonderful place with live music, beautiful cocktails, great
Okay.
ambiance, just great artwork. So sometimes it's worth it. I mean, you might not be able to spend the night there, but you could go have a cocktail
You can,
for
well,
some of us.
and I don't go there every night either,
Us,
because those
yes.
cocktails were pricey, but with my little old pension, but yeah, once every, even like once a week or so, you can afford that. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So that was really a wonderful experience. Yeah, I really enjoy Bangkok. I know that we're kind of out of time. Usually these are about an hour. I wanted
Okay.
to just ask you in terms of, I guess everything is that's the other thing I'm learning as a new solopreneur
Huh?
and a person with a media outlet is that everything is an opportunity for marketing. So I want to allow you to have the floor to say some final words, let the YouTube world know how they could find you. I don't know if you're active on any social media platforms, if people wanted to stay in touch with you. I will definitely send you the link when this goes live. And so
Okay.
definitely come back in the comments and see what people are saying. I mean, usually I will do that. If somebody has a question for you or has a comment, I'll basically send it to you so that you can
Okay.
know what resonated with people. Yeah. So I want to give you the last word. It's been such a wonderful hour here, just getting to know you better and your story and so much. I just feel so inspired to just keep my own travel journey going
Thank
based on
you.
our
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you. So in terms of getting in touch with me, I am on Instagram, Yvette, my first name, YVETTE dot, and then part of my last name, Malci, Yvette Malci, Yvette.Malci. So I'm on Instagram. If you look me up, because my name is fairly unique, I'm on Facebook too, but not nearly as often. And yeah, last words or thoughts, I would say just get out there in terms of travel. You don't have to go and set up new routes in a new place like I have done, but I would say if you do travel, go someplace for at least 5 days, because there are people who kind of dip in and out of countries. A lot of backpackers do this, people who do this on cruises. They go someplace for a day or two and okay, I've seen Rome. I'm back on the ship. I go to the next port. You're not really getting a real feel for the place. So pick a place. It doesn't have to be really far, but if you plan ahead, you can go far for less money and stay a while and do some touring, but do some just sitting in cafes and people watching and having conversations, because that is enriching and tells you a lot about the locale as well. So there you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have said the same thing that I have been saying in the year that I've had this channel, that it's important to embrace slow travel,
Hmm.
particularly once you reach a certain age. Like, I mean, once you've seen one museum, one castle, one temple, they all start looking if you're doing 5 cities in 5 days, or some kind of
Right.
craziness, like a lot of younger people, their style of travel is that way. I personally think a month. I know for a lot of
If you can
people, one of
afford
the
it.
reasons why
Yeah.
sabbatical travel is that it's not very expensive. It's actually way cheaper to be somewhere for a month. If you do a 28-day stay, you basically get it for the
Uh-huh.
cost of 2 weeks, which is one of the
Wow.
reasons why sabbatical slow living is one of the core content pillars of my channel. And so let me, at this point, put my plug down here. So this link, if you click on it, is to a custom travel guide service that I offer. It's
Mhm.
called the Start Smarter Travel Guide. And the way this works is you will get the opportunity to fill out a survey to tell me about your preferences, tell me about your travel dreams, tell me about your budget. And then I will curate two itineraries for you based on where
Oh.
I've been and where people I know have been. Now I will add Yvette to that list of people. It says, oh, I have a client who's interested in da 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 da. I know you lived in the Philippines. What must you do if the Philippines
Uh-huh.
is your radar? So
Hmm.
basically, I'm not going to suggest anything that someone that I know personally hasn't done. And that I myself now have been to about 30 cities in 8 countries.
Wow.
So, and I realize there are some people who've been to 20 countries or 50 countries or whatever, but I actually only started
Hmm.
like 2 years ago.
Well.
But, and I also think that because I'm a slow traveler, I have a better grasp of the depth and the highs and the lows that are available in terms of
Hmm.
budget flights experience. Some people want to be in small, intimate spaces. Some people want to be in, large venue,
Hmm.
concerts, festivals, night market type of things. So
Right.
that's the psychologist. One of the things that we specialize in is creating assessments to help
Hmm.
inspire and inform human behavior. So I
Hmm.
would say travel is like a fun human behavior, but it's still a human behavior. We can help
Right.
people plan the trip that they want. So we really appreciate you watching. And I want to say, if you have not already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you are a woman of a certain stature, meaning 40, 45. You're looking at that fifth decade with curiosity, or maybe you passed it a long time ago and you're looking at it with nostalgia. No. This is a channel where we bring you resources, information, inspiration about planning that next decade, whatever that is. If you've never traveled, or if you've traveled but never by yourself, you've gone but you've never done a slow travel type experience, this is a place where we talk about all that. And then the last thing I want to do is I always do, following each episode, there's a deep dive article. If you're a reader or writer, Substack has been a phenomenal place. It's a great place for you to support the channel and become a paid subscriber. And there is a free level, obviously, so you can also just be there to get the information about other resources. The Peace Corps information that Yvette was so kind to share with us, I will put a link in the episode description here, but there will be a more deeper dive into Peace Corps in the Substack article when it comes out a week after this comes. So it's just another way for me, as a person who really loves writing. I would say that's my first language, first skill,
Hmm.
to engage with people who are watching who want a deeper dive. So my Substack is basically On Sabbatical with Dr. Crystal. Super easy to find. And then if you would please leave us a comment. Tell us where you're watching from and what are your 2026, still January, so I'm doing the theme of goals. What are on your travel dreams, travel goals for 2026? I would love to know where you're watching from and where you hope to be in 2026. Or if you've already booked a ticket.